carry on with COVID. Boris Johnson sets out how we'll learn to live alongside the virus. The PM told Parliament England would be ending compulsory isolation and free testing for most, saying it's time for government to step back.
Moving forward away from legal compulsion in a way that I think the British people understand, and trusting in their great sense of personal responsibility.
So does this then really mark the end of the pandemic, or is it more about politics, as some suggest? We look at the facts. Also tonight, third time unlucky, Britain's buffeted by yet another storm as Franklin follows Dudley and Eunice. An inspiration to so many, tributes to the music and charity pioneer Jamal Edwards, who's died aged 31. And reunited, emotional scenes in Australia as restrictions are lifted and borders reopen at last.
724 apart, and he's my only son and I'm alone, so this means the world to me.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The Prime Minister tonight signalled the end of COVID laws in England and the start of a new phase in the way we live with the virus. Boris Johnson told MPs we'd be moving away from government restrictions to personal responsibility. From Thursday, the legal requirement to self-isolate will end. From April, an end to free universal testing, except for the most vulnerable, and a spring booster programme for over 75s and the immunosuppressed. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said it would leave the nation vulnerable. But the Prime Minister told MPs we need to learn to live with the virus. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan has the latest.
Not so long ago, high streets were deserted. Now they are teeming. Cafes were empty. Now they have customers. The Prime Minister was closing things. Now he's ending all the remaining restrictions in England.
It is time that we got our confidence back. We don't need laws to compel people to be considerate to others. So let us learn to live with this virus and continue protecting ourselves and others without restricting our freedoms.
The Living with COVID plan for England says that from Thursday, self-isolation for cases will not be legally required. Contact tracing will end and self-isolation payments will end. From the 1st of April, free tests for everyone will also end, and at some point in the spring, a fourth vaccination will be made available for the over 75s and the vulnerable.
Keir Starmer.
But the opposition think it's all too big a risk.
I know the British people will continue to act responsibly, and they will do the right thing, testing and then isolating if positive. What I can't understand is why the Prime Minister is taking away the tools that will help them to do that. If you're 2-1 up with 10 minutes to go, you don't sub off one of your best defenders.
And in Downing Street there was an element of farce this morning as ministers gathered to approve the plan, only to find Cabinet cancelled with 10 minutes notice as the Chancellor and Health Secretary wrangled over the final details. But the Prime Minister has just about satisfied his backbenchers.
And I've seen courage today, and I'd like to thank my right honourable friend for the statement that he's made. If he recalls, we weren't on the same side when it came to lockdown.
But the vulnerable are deeply worried. Jacqueline Fuller is deaf, has had a heart transplant and must take immunosuppressant drugs.
I know there'll be people out there that will think, oh, you know, this is great, the restrictions have been lifted, we can do what we want, we can go where I want. We can't. And I think it's just wrong, very wrong.
And closer to Westminster, a reminder of just how difficult it is to avoid COVID. Buckingham Palace said the Queen would continue light duties after her positive test for the virus. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Westminster.
The Prime Minister's announcement marks something of a return to pre-pandemic life. But it brings with it many concerns too. Our UK editor Paul Brand went to the West Midlands to see whether people there are ready for the end of COVID restrictions.
At this carpet shop in Birmingham, there's something they've long been hoping to cut. Self-isolation rules have cost them months of absences. The owner can't wait for the law to change.
So October, November, December was tough. You know, a lot of people got ill, a couple of the staff got ill a couple of times. It then put strain on everyone else. I mean, for instance, I haven't had a week off for so long now. So hoping that with the restrictions out of the place, it's at least giving us the ability to, you know, do some business as usual.
Until now, 6 staff have had to use their holidays. From Thursday, they won't get the £500 payment either.
The last year I had COVID twice, which meant I had to self-isolate for 20 days altogether.
20 days?
20 days, which literally took all of my holidays.
And would you still self-isolate if it wasn't compulsory?
I don't think I would, just because of finances and things.
Vaccination centres will still be free, hopefully not of people. This one in Sandwell was quiet today, but the plan is to keep them busy as the main defence against COVID.
It's been going on too long. I suppose we've just got to live a normal life.
Do you think it's too soon to get rid of the restrictions?
I think it's too soon, saying that, yeah.
You're still worried about it?
Yeah.
Despite lower uptake in parts of the Midlands, like here in Sandwell, across the UK, 91% of people have now had at least one jab. And the government's made the calculation that the benefits of living with COVID now outweigh the risks of dying with it. In Walsall, Deb Gascoigne spent 18 months trying to outmanoeuvre the virus. She has blood cancer and only went out to walk her dog.
I can protect myself and my family can protect me to a certain degree, but if I'm going to lead a normal life to any extent, then I'm sort of reliant on other people, and unfortunately I think I'll be at more risk then.
For some, lifting restrictions is about personal responsibility. For others tonight, it feels like personal risk. Paul Brand, ITV News in the West Midlands.
And our health editor Emily Morgan is here. So this is undoubtedly a significant day, but a lot of people are asking, aren't they, whether the timing is right and if we have enough remaining defences against this.
Yeah, it is really significant. And I think it leaves an awful lot of questions that a lot of people have different answers to, which doesn't help. In terms of the timing, some scientists point out that it is actually too early, that there's still an awful lot of COVID in the community. 1 in 20 of us still have it. On the flip side, though, hospital admissions are down, they're falling, and of course we know Omicron is less likely to put people in hospital. Other scientists think that the scrapping of the requirement to self-isolate could inevitably lead to a surge. And it might, but when you consider how immune we all are now, either from natural immunity or from the vaccine, then actually self-isolation has much less of an impact. So the government's obviously willing to take that gamble. I think the most contentious issue among scientists is testing, not knowing where cases are if there is a new wave. That's what they're worried about. In terms of defences, well, the government is obviously completely relying on vaccines and treatment. There'll be a spring booster, an autumn booster, but I think our biggest defence really is how immune we all are and our use of our common sense. It's asking a lot, but I think actually it was inevitable at some point.
All right, Emily, thank you. And for more on the rule changes in England and indeed the current state of play in each part of the UK, head to our website where you'll also find the Prime Minister's press conference live at 7 p.m. straight after the programme. And that's all at itv.com/news. Moving on, and large parts of the UK have been hit by high winds and flooding as a third storm struck in less than a week. Homes have been evacuated, transport brought to a halt, and tens of thousands are still without power tonight. Our North of England reporter Hannah Miller is in Tadcaster in North Yorkshire. Hannah.
Well, the water is now going down here after the river burst its banks in the early hours of this morning and flooded around 60 properties. But it comes, as you say, off the back of both Storm Dudley and Storm Eunice, each hitting different parts of the UK in different ways, but leaving people here at least feeling pretty demoralised. This is how Storm Franklin swept across the UK. Crashing into the coast of Northern Ireland, leaving a trail of debris and destruction in its midst. As Storm Franklin battered the seaside town of Portstewart, leaving cars stranded and businesses submerged.
There's no sea defences down here really. They don't work when it gets like this here, so we'll get wetsuits on. We'll go in and see what the damage is.
The flooding forced the high street to close in the North Yorkshire town of Tadcaster. Oh my goodness, is this your business? As business owners looked on in despair after their third set of floods in 10 years.
Just devastation. There's no words, you can't really put it into words, you know, it's your livelihood, your business. What do you think, what do you do? It's just hard, it's just really hard.
The disruption continued on the trains, where passengers tried to navigate their way around thousands of cancellations, while repairs to power lines damaged last week have also been delayed because of the ongoing high winds.
I've got a thermos there, I was going to take it to my neighbours.
Leaving people like Annabelle near Liphook in Hampshire without electricity for 2 days.
I can't cook, I can't see in the evening at 6 o'clock, it's pitch dark. And I'm in despair because once again, here it is, it's freezing cold in this house, it's a very cold house anyway, and there's no news.
Tonight there was good news for some residents in South Manchester who were able to return safely home after being offered temporary shelter in a mosque.
It was a bit like a hen party. It was a bit like that, but nobody was getting married.
But across the country, people are having to pull together as their resilience is put to the test as the clean-up from yet another storm continues. Hannah Miller, ITV News.
Well, Storm Franklin may have moved on tonight, but it has left in its wake more than 100 flood warnings across England. And there are 2 severe flood warnings in place along the River Severn tonight, meaning a danger to life, including one at Ironbridge, where our reporter Yasmin Boddleby is. Yasmin, how worried are residents there tonight?
Well, Mary, there's a little bit of an ominous feeling here tonight. The flood barriers are up and ready. We've been watching as people who live and work next to the river here are getting themselves ready. Some of them have already left. Others will be helped by police when they start their official evacuation of the area in about an hour's time. Back-to-back storms, days of heavy rain means that the River Severn here is swollen. It's very fast-moving. And it's not going to get any better anytime soon. It's expected to peak tomorrow evening. That severe flood warning means that there's a risk to life, and it's been issued by the Environment Agency here because they're worried that the water could come over the top of the flood barriers. That did happen in 2020. At the time, they called it a once-in-a-lifetime flood. It looks like it could happen again.
OK, Yasmin in Ironbridge, thank you. The defence, President Vladimir Putin is due to address the Russian people tonight as diplomatic efforts continue to stop an invasion of Ukraine. Now, the president is expected to recognise the independence of 2 breakaway regions of Ukraine. And our Europe editor James Mates is in the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. James, what do we think that President Putin is going to be saying tonight?
Well, we're pretty certain that when he goes on television in about half an hour's time, the Kremlin said he is going to announce the recognition of these 2 republics, Donetsk and Lugansk, as independent republics. Now, these are internationally recognised areas of Ukraine, which he is effectively carving out of Ukraine. They have been under separatist control for 8 years now, pretty much under Russian control in all but name. What he is now doing is formalising that situation. It's dangerous for 2 reasons. One, the leaders of these republics may be inviting Russian armour and troops into their areas to protect them, as they put it. But the other really worrying thing is that both these republics are only actually half controlled by separatists. The other half remain firmly in Ukrainian hands. If the Russians were to take this to mean that they must now go and get the rest of these 2 republics, that would involve a major confrontation, armed confrontation with Ukrainian forces. Internationally, it's going down very, very badly. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz called President Putin this afternoon, urging him not to do this, but he's gone ahead anyway. The EU, High Representative for Foreign Affairs, says that this will trigger sanctions. There's going to be trouble at the UN. It is clearly an escalation, a significant escalation. What it isn't yet is an escalation as bad as some people had feared he was planning. So we see whether it stops here or whether he takes further steps.
OK, James Mates in Kiev, thank you. Here, 3 people went on trial today accused of the murder of 5-year-old Logan Mwangi. One of those was the boy's mother. Logan was found dead in a river in Bridgend last July, and Martha Fairley is at Cardiff Crown Court. So, Martha, what did the court hear today?
Well, the jury was told that Logan Mwangi had been described as a lovely little boy, cheerful, chatty, polite and kind. But the prosecution claim he was killed by his mother, 30-year-old Ankarid Williamson, her partner John Cole, who's 40, and a 14-year-old boy who can't be named for legal reasons. It's alleged each of them played their part in the murder of 5-year-old Logan, whose lifeless body was found in the River Ogmore near his home in the village of Sarn last July. He'd suffered 56 external injuries from blunt force trauma, as well as significant injuries to his internal organs and brain, which caused his death. The court heard that at 5:45 a.m. on the 31st of July, Williamson called 999 to report her son missing, but the prosecution claimed that was part of an elaborate charade. The jury was shown CCTV from the early hours of that morning of John Cole and the teenager. Cole was carrying something in his arms, which he later confirmed was Logan's dead body. They walked along the riverside path to the spot where his body was later found. The prosecution telling the court he'd been disposed of like they were fly-tipping rubbish. At the same time, a light can be seen switching on and off in Logan's bedroom. Proof it's claimed that Logan's mother knew what had happened. All 3 of the accused deny murder.
Martha Fairley at Cardiff Crown Court, thank you. Still to come on the ITV Evening News.
Yo, what's going on, people? It's Jamal Edwards, entrepreneur and founder of online music platform SBTV.
The life and legacy of Jamal Edwards. We hear why he was such an inspiration in music. Plus, the very latest from Windsor on the Queen's COVID isolation. Those stories and more after this very short break. Welcome back. Prince Charles led the tributes today to the music entrepreneur who helped launch the careers of British stars like Ed Sheeran, Jessie J and Dave. Jamal Edwards, who founded the music platform SBTV, has died after a short illness. He was just 31 years old. In 2014, he was awarded an MBE for services to music. Here's our entertainment reporter, Rishi Davda.
Yo, what's going on, people? It's Jamal Edwards, entrepreneur and founder of online music platform SBTV.
Jamal's SBTV was more than just a place for great music. It was a home for up-and-coming artists and a launchpad for some of the industry's best-known stars.
I'm in town, break it down, thinking I'm making a new sound, playing for SBTV for the new crowd, that's you now.
Started in 2006, the platform put the likes of Ed Sheeran, Stormzy and Jessie J into the spotlight.
Yo, let me break down the world that we're living in.
Rapper Tinchy Strider worked with Jamal and knew early on that he was someone special.
He's always looks out for everyone without making an extra effort. You can tell that he's naturally doing it from the heart. And that's what, like, when you're like kind of affiliated and associated with Jamal Edwards, you know that there's something serious going on, something important going on. And that's what he had that thing about him. And he didn't feel unapproachable. He's been a special guy from ages ago, man. So I think it's definitely a gap that kind of can't be filled. But I don't think anyone will be trying to fill it. It's just more like let the legacy live. And his name will be here forever, for sure.
He was the son of singer and Loose Women presenter Brenda Edwards, appearing alongside his mum last year.
Like, a lot of my friends weren't being represented in the mainstream media, and I think that also inspired me. But obviously, my mum's work ethic inspired me as well.
Jamal was just 31 when he suddenly died. His mum's emotional statement read out on the show today.
Jamal was an inspiration to myself and so many. A love for him lives on. His legacy lives on. Long live Jamal Edwards, MBE, MBA, PhD.
Made an MBE at 24 and an ambassador for the Prince's Trust, today Prince Charles called Jamal an inspiration to so many. He helped make global icons, but was himself a local legend, celebrated with a mural for his work with young people in West London.
That was the inspiration, to take these things that have been discarded and reuse them and make something better of them. And I think that was a lot of his sort of always seeing something positive in those around him and wanting to bring them up and make something good of us all.
It started when Jamal's parents got him a video camera for Christmas. That was their present, but his gift and his legacy was putting others first.
And the inspiring Jamal Edwards, who's died at the age of 31. Now, the Queen will be carrying out light duties this week, we're told, after testing positive for COVID. The 95-year-old, who's experiencing mild cold-like symptoms, is expected to hold a weekly meeting with the Prime Minister over the phone rather than in person. And Chloe Keedy is in Windsor. So, Chloe, what do we know about the Queen's self-isolation then?
Well, the Palace was very keen to reassure us yesterday that the Queen would be carrying on with those light duties, and today she has been. We know, for example, that she sent a letter of condolence to the President of Brazil following the devastating flooding that's happened there. We know that yesterday she sent a letter to the British curling team congratulating them on their success at the Winter Olympics, and we expect, as you say, that she will hold that weekly audience with the Prime Minister, albeit on the phone. Her last in-person audience was here at Windsor Castle last Wednesday. She looked to be in fairly good spirits that day. This is where she's been since the start of the pandemic, shielding for much of it. And it's understood recently that there have been several COVID cases on the Windsor Castle team. The Palace say that she'll continue to follow all of the guidelines, but it seems she's determined for now, as much as possible at least, to get on with the job.
All right, Chloe Keedy at Windsor, thank you. And finally, it's not just the UK where COVID restrictions are coming to an end. On the other side of the world, in Australia, there were jubilant scenes as the country finally opened its borders to vaccinated travellers. Garrett Vincent on the heartwarming reunions.
These are hugs and kisses which have been waiting to happen for 2 years. And some people have been counting the days.
724 apart, and he's my only son and I'm alone, so this means the world to me.
What's it like having him in your arms again?
I don't want to let go.
The arrivals halls reopened early this morning, so all those big occasions that had been postponed can now go ahead. And some of the guests made it just in time.
Picking up my best friend, haven't seen him since 2018, and he made it back just in time for my wedding in 4 days.
Suddenly, Grandad is no longer a face on a computer screen. He's there in real life.
Oh, it's great to have her back. Have her back. She's got to go again, but we'll get her back again.
There was music and a party atmosphere at the airports for much missed visitors who've learnt something about what's really important in life.
So excited because I haven't seen them for 2 years.
And what are you most looking forward to now you're in Australia?
To spend time with them.
Australia is part of the world again, and its airports are filling up with love. Garrett Vincent, ITV News.
And that's it for now. Tom's here with news at 10 from me and all the team. Bye-bye.